So in the previous video, we saw about the revenue budget within the government budget. Now we are going to be looking at the capital budget. It includes capital receipts and capital expenditure. We have already explained this. The capital budget has two components, that is capital receipts and capital expenditure. So what are the components of capital receipts? That is what we are going to look at now. The money that the government receives from the sale of its assets and raising loans. Both of these are capital receipts. So what is capital? Capital account means an account where you have something to do with assets and liabilities, right? Something to do with assets and liabilities. So the money that the government receives from the sale of its assets is going into capital receipts. If you raise a loan, again that is a liability that is coming into the capital account. Okay. So although loans have to be returned later, they are still looked at as receipts for the sake of accounting. Similarly, even a sale of asset in a way is like you're liquidating something that is already there. But money is coming in. How do you account for that money? That is why we have this capital account and we look at it as capital receipts. When you sell an asset, it is not that you are earning something. It is just that you are changing the mode of holding value. That's all. Okay. So even though loans have to be returned later, they are still looked at as receipts for the sake of accounting. The sale of government property like government land, PSUs, etc., reduce the total assets held by the government. Hence, all those receipts of the government which create liability or reduce financial assets are termed as capital receipts. I repeat, all the receipts of the government which create liability or reduce the financial assets held are termed as capital receipts. You may also get a doubt, right? For example, if you're selling a building of the government, are you reducing your financial asset? No, you're changing the mode of holding value. But let's say you raise a loan, then what happens? If you take a loan, then you've created a liability. Okay, so all the receipts of the government which create liability or reduce financial assets are termed as capital receipts. When the government takes a loan, then it has to pay interest along with the principal. Similar to how we do it, right? If we take a loan, there is one principal component, there is one interest component. When the government sells its asset like a PSU, then the earnings that it may have gained from that asset is lost. Hence, capital receipts can be looked at as debt creating and non-debt creating receipts. Okay, capital receipts can be looked at as debt creating and non-debt creating receipts. Now we're going to be looking at capital expenditure or capex, right? Capital expenditures are expenditures of the government which result in creation of physical or financial assets or a reduction in financial liabilities. Okay, I'll just repeat that. Expenditures of the government which result in creation of financial assets or a reduction in financial liabilities. So both are capital expenditures. If we look at examples, we'll have a better understanding of it, right? So we have creation of physical assets or financial assets or a reduction in financial liabilities. So this includes the expenditure on the following. Number one, the acquisition of land, building, machinery, equipment, etc. All of these are asset creations. Investment in shares, loans and advances by the central government to state and other union territory government, PSUs and other parties. All of these are examples of capital expenditure. Capital expenditure is also categorized as plan and non-plan in the budget documents. So we have seen this in the initial flow chart, right? That capital expenditure is into plan capital expenditure and non-plan capital expenditure. So we have already understood what capital expenditure entails. It can be buying land, building, etc., or building a new PSU and spending on that. Or it could be in giving somebody a loan. That is also a capex. It could be giving loan to some PSU or to a different state government, right? This is also capital expenditure. If you, let's say, buy financial assets, let's say we go and buy some if the central government goes and buys some stocks, that is also capital expenditure. Okay, all of these are examples of capital expenditure. Then we said that capex can be divided into two parts, that is planned capital expenditure and non-planned capital expenditure. Planned capital expenditure or planned capital expenditure, like its revenue counterpart, relates to central plan and central assistance for state and union and territory plans. Okay, planned capital expenditure means it relates to central plan and central assistance for state and union territory plans. Non-planned capital expenditure covers various general social and economic services provided by the government. These are also, you should not think that these are completely in terms of revenue expenditure, because this is capital expenditure. When we say covers various general social and economic services, this does not include the non-planned revenue expenditure. Revenue expenditure is different, that is pertaining to only this financial year, right? For example, subsidies, that could be non-planned revenue expenditure. But non-planned capital expenditure can be like building, let's say, a big housing colony for the underprivileged. That can be non-planned capital expenditure because you're creating an asset there, which is a colony. So these are the different parts of the capital budget, where we have capital receipts, capital expenditure, and we have looked at the components of capital receipts and capital expenditure. We will continue in the next video. Thank you.